Welcome into another episode of the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast on Sports Illustrated from the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Tom Cavanaugh, your host and UCLA Bruins Insider. You can follow me at TCAP30 on Twitter/X and follow our insider pages at UCLA Insider on SI. Today we're going to be talking about two different sports, football and men's basketball. There were some comments made by a CBS Sports college basketball insider about the Bruins and what they were able to do against the Oregon Ducks in upset fashion, and how the Big Ten regular season title is going to work out. We'll get to that. And then we'll also talk about four different defensive individuals on the Bruins football team that earned Big Ten honors this week. So first, we'll start with basketball. The Bruins, obviously, coming off that big 73-71 win over the Oregon Ducks on the road. Bruins are now 24th ranked in the country as they took down number 12 Oregon. And it was a key win. Obviously, the big jump shot at the end, bank three-pointer from the junior guard, Dylan Andrews. But for a majority of that game, the Bruins did play well. And one guy that recognized that was CBS Sports college basketball insider John Rothstein. He joined Ben Stevens on the FanDuel Sportsbook podcast, The Early Line, and they were pretty much just looking at the top teams amongst the Big Ten Conference, who was going to come out on top. It's really all about which team is going to upend those Purdue Boilermakers, who are currently ranked 11th in the country. Purdue has won the Big Ten regular season title the past 2 years in a row. Some team has got to find a way to knock them off the top. And Rothstein believes that it can be those Bruins. So he was quoted saying this. He was asked, who do you think has the best chance to be able to upend the Boilermakers and take that number one spot? Rothstein quoted saying, I think a couple of days ago, you'd have to say Dana Altman's Oregon Ducks. But I got to tell you, the performance that UCLA had on Sunday in Eugene was really impressive. I'm not saying that UCLA was flawless down the stretch, because it wasn't. UCLA for 37 minutes was clearly the better team than Oregon, and in the last 2 or 3 minutes, there was a lot of miscues that Mick Cronin's team will need to rectify. But UCLA is markedly better than the team the first week of the season that went to Las Vegas and lost to New Mexico. I see the Bruins resurging. I see an unparalleled depth in the Big Ten, and I see a team that looks to be a force in that league. UCLA is a unit right now that doesn't have Jaime Jaquez, that doesn't have Johnny Juzang, but the whole looks better than the sum of its parts in Westwood. So Rothstein's big on these Bruins. I talked about Jaime Jaquez and Johnny Juzang. Those are two of the key guys that led this Bruins team to a Final Four a couple of years ago. Now both players in the NBA. But you got to like what you're hearing here. Obviously, the last 3 minutes, not great for the Bruins. They allowed a 10-2 run down the stretch to put them behind by 1 point. That forced Andrews to make that game-winning shot with 0.4 seconds remaining. But he sees the depth and experience just like we do, talking about all the different juniors and seniors, transfer players that are coming over to Mick Cronin's group and have really taken a large step since Rothstein talking about that New Mexico loss. They've won 7 in a row, and they look like a completely different team. They only turned the ball over 9 times against the Ducks. They did it 21 times against New Mexico back in the second game of the year. So there's a direct correlation to not only turnovers, offensive rebounding, the turnovers they're forcing, to be able to win some games and play better than some of the top teams in the country, because Oregon was no slouch. I know they were ranked 12th, and sometimes early in the year those rankings can be skewed, but that's the team that beat number 20 Texas A&M. They beat number 9 Alabama. The Ducks are a Final Four type of team as well. So UCLA, a big feather in their cap getting that done, and Rothstein big on the Bruins to come out and win that Big Ten and take over for the Purdue Boilermakers. Moving on to football, there are 4 players that were named to Big Ten honors. Junior linebacker Carson Schlesinger leads the way. He garnered all Big Ten first team. Senior linebacker Kane Madrano was selected to the third team all Big Ten. And then defensive tackle senior Jay Toai and defensive back senior Kalen Moore each received honorable mention acclaim. Those two guys, Toai and Moore, big pieces on defense, along with the 2 linebackers. Moore had a clutch game-winning interception against Nebraska in the midway part of the year. Toai, he was in the backfield almost every single snap. Tons of tackle for loss. I think he only had 1 sack this year and 20-some tackles, but he definitely deserves it for his ability on the defensive line. But the 2 guys that impressed the most this year were Schlesinger and Kane Medrano. Now, Medrano, he was a senior. He had a pretty solid season still. 72 tackles on the year in his 5th and final season with the team, or 6th season, I'm sorry. But he was able to garner a sack and a half on the year, 3 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, including a pick 6. He probably could have gotten second team as well for what he was able to do this season. But Schlesinger, he definitely deserved a first team bid as well, or an honor, I should say. 136 total tackles, came into his junior season with just 27 in his career, popped off for the 3rd most in FBS with 136. He had 4 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 2 interceptions. I mean, all of these guys, you look at the 4 of them, they combined for 270 total tackles, 6.5 sacks, 5 interceptions, and 5 forced fumbles throughout the 12 games of the year. Each one of these very deserving of the awards that they have garnered. Medrano, Toai, and Moore, all seniors, all leaving at the end of this year. And the question mark is still looming over Schlesinger to see if he will come back for his senior season or not. Could transfer, could go to the draft, could stay as a Bruin. We will see. This has been the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast here on Sports Illustrated from the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Tom Cavanaugh. You can follow me at TCAV30 on Twitter/X, and then also follow our insider pages at UCLA Insider on SI. Thanks so much, everybody. We will see you again tomorrow.